In 2025, Disney released 9 major films: Snow White, Tron Ares, Thunderbolts, Elio, Fantastic Four. 9 films, 9 of the biggest brand names in Hollywood. And according to multiple industry analysts, 2025 was shaping up to become one of Disney's weakest box office years in decades. Snow White alone lost over $100 million. Tron Ares, over $100 million. Even Thunderbolts, a Marvel film with a built-in fan base, another $100 million gone. 3 major releases, roughly $300 million lost. And Bob Iger, Disney's own CEO, had stood in front of shareholders earlier that year and told them this was the strongest slate since 2019. Meanwhile, Disney Plus lost subscribers for the first time since the day it launched. And the people who invested in this company, the shareholders who believed in it, have collectively lost over $200 billion since Disney's peak valuation. $200 billion. That's not a bad year. That's a company in crisis. And the question nobody is answering clearly enough is, how did the most trusted entertainment brand in American history get here? Because this isn't just about failed movies or a struggling streaming service. The real story goes deeper. It's about what happens when a company built on emotional connection starts making decisions purely based on financial calculation. And what happens to the audience when they finally notice. To understand what broke, you have to understand what was built. In 1937, Walt Disney did something the entire Hollywood industry called financial suicide. He made a feature-length animated film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, at a time when animated films were 5-minute cartoons. Studios laughed. They called it Disney's folly. Snow White became the highest-grossing sound film of its era. But the money wasn't the real story. The real story was what happened in the theater. Grown adults cried. Children sat frozen. A cartoon, hand-drawn, frame by frame, made people feel things they couldn't explain. That became Disney's real formula: emotional connection. Pinocchio, Dumbo, Bambi, Cinderella. Then, in 1955, Disneyland opened, the first theme park of its kind. Every major park built after it copied Disney's blueprint. By the 1990s, Disney had entered what many call its second golden era. The Lion King, Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast. These weren't just movies. They were the soundtrack of American childhood. Parents trusted Disney with their kids' imaginations. That trust was worth more than any box office number. And for decades, it held. Here's where the shift began, and it wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. Between 2006 and 2019, Disney made 4 acquisitions that changed everything: Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilm, and then 21st Century Fox for $71 billion. On paper, genius. In reality, the beginning of a different kind of company. The Marvel Cinematic Universe became the most profitable franchise in Hollywood history. Avengers Endgame crossed $2.79 billion globally in 2019. Disney was everywhere. But everywhere has a cost nobody was talking about. When every month becomes another franchise release, anticipation disappears. Audiences stop feeling excitement and start feeling fatigue. For the first time, audiences began treating Marvel releases like obligation instead of event cinema. After Endgame, the films that followed couldn't replicate that momentum. The Marvels in 2023 became the lowest-grossing MCU film in history. At the same time, Disney made a second calculation: live-action remakes. The logic was simple. Take a beloved classic, add real actors, profit from nostalgia. The Lion King remake made $1.6 billion in 2019. So Disney did it again, and again, and again. Over 20 live-action remakes followed. But something shifted in the audience. A survey found over 80% of fans felt Disney was announcing remakes too often. The originals, the ones that made people cry in a theater in 1994, were being replaced by CGI versions that looked expensive but felt hollow. The Lion King remake achieved something technically impressive and emotionally empty at the exact same time. That was the point where audiences began wondering something they had never seriously questioned about Disney before. Did the company still care more about storytelling than scalability? This is where the conversation around Disney becomes divided. Some think Disney can recover. Others think the damage is already permanent. Do you think Disney can come back, or has something permanently broken? I read every single comment, and if you're not subscribed yet, this channel covers the real stories behind the world's biggest companies. Subscribe so you catch the next one. By 2023, the financial reality could no longer be ignored. Disney's operating income had dropped 18% from 2018 levels. Free cash flow had fallen 50%. Earnings per share down 85%. These weren't temporary setbacks. They were signs that something deeper inside the company had started breaking down. And they all pointed to one man who would become the center of the story. Bob Chapek had replaced Bob Iger as CEO in 2020. His tenure lasted less than 3 years. Under his leadership, Disney got into a high-profile public conflict with the state of Florida, a battle that damaged Disney's carefully protected family brand and cost the company its special tax district status in Orlando, a privilege it had held for over 50 years. The board fired Chapek in November 2022 and brought Iger back, but Iger's return didn't solve the deeper problem. By 2023, Disney was producing so much franchise content that audiences began describing Marvel shows as homework online. That is an extraordinary thing for a company that once turned every release into a cultural event. Because the creative decline wasn't tied to one executive, it had become embedded in the system itself. A system that had replaced risk with formula, that had replaced originality with IP extraction, that had turned a studio built on emotion into a content pipeline. In 2025, Snow White arrived carrying years of pre-release controversy. The decisions made around that film, changing core story elements that generations had grown up with, alienated the audience before a single ticket was sold. The trailer became one of the most disliked in Disney's history. It lost over $100 million. Tron Ares followed, another $100 million. Thunderbolts, another. One disappointing release after another. And here's the detail that should concern Disney most. The Wild Robot, made by rival studio DreamWorks, came out the same year. Original story, modest budget, emotionally powerful. Audiences loved it. Audiences hadn't stopped caring about animation. They had stopped emotionally connecting with Disney's version of it. Here's where it gets complicated. Because Disney's story isn't simple. Post-COVID, movie-going behavior changed across the entire industry. The global box office is still 26% below pre-pandemic levels. Streaming disrupted theatrical economics for every studio, not just Disney. These are real forces, and Disney was caught in all of them simultaneously. But here's the uncomfortable truth that those factors alone can't explain. Universal Studios, Disney's biggest competitor, had its best box office year in 2023. DreamWorks kept winning audiences. Independent studios kept finding hits. The industry challenges were real, but they couldn't fully explain what was happening to Disney. The problem was that Disney had spent 15 years making decisions that quietly, almost invisibly, broke the emotional contract it once had with its audience. Bob Iger knows this. He said publicly that Disney needs to focus on quality over quantity. He's restructured the studio. He's cut content spending. But a contract that took decades to build doesn't recover in a quarter. The parks still generate billions. Merchandise still sells. Lilo and Stitch, a remake, actually became one of the biggest domestic releases of 2025. There are still signs the company can recover, but a company that once made the entire world feel something is now in a position nobody expected. Disney now faces a problem few companies survive: winning back people who once loved it. That is a harder task than building a new audience. Because disappointment from something you loved cuts deeper than indifference ever could. Walt Disney once mortgaged his own house to keep his studio alive. He risked everything, repeatedly, because he believed the work mattered. The company that carries his name now faces a different kind of risk. Not bankruptcy, not sudden collapse, something potentially more dangerous for a company built on cultural relevance: being forgotten by the next generation growing up right now. Whether Disney finds its way back to what made it matter, or whether this slow erosion continues, that answer is still being written. What do you think? Drop it in the comments. And if this video gave you something to think about, subscribe. Because the companies the world admires most often hide the most fascinating failures.